Welcome to another video. This one is on something I've been toying with for a little while. Obviously Falklands related. You'd be surprised to find out. I've used Skirmish Sangin for a number of different periods. It's a really good system. As people who watch the channel know that I'm quite I have very favourable reviews of it, and it's easily adaptable to other conflicts and periods. Is very low level skirmish, as we've discussed. So what I wanted to do, I had some 28mm British figures that I've been using for the conflict in Northern Ireland in the 80s, and I've decided to do a very small setup for the Falklands in 28mm. This is obviously to do very small level skirmishes. So Sangin obviously works when you're activating individual man, so we're basically looking at section level. So very small section and fire team attacks on positions in the hills during the Falklands. Figures wise, in 28mm, obviously Empress have released a new range. However, there's a couple of older ranges which are really nice. Mongrel Miniatures, which back in the day was owned by a guy called Frank Hammond, who I know. They did a very nice range of Cold War British, designed initially around obviously the Cold War in the mid-80s. So British infantry with SLRs, Sterling submachine guns, GPMGs, LMGs, really nice figures. They're available at the moment. I think you can only get them from Badger Games, which is a US company. I don't think there's a distributor in the UK at the moment. However, I've managed to pick up nearly a platoon's worth of figures from Andy, a gaming buddy, who'd got them from Carl, another gaming buddy. So they've been around the doors a little bit, but I've picked them up. I'm really pleased with them. I've supplemented those figures with some from MoFo, from Grip and Beast. They do a Falkland specific range. They've been out quite a while, but they're really nice. They're nice figures. The British come with separate heads, and they do a range of heads. So there's some with airborne helmets on, some with woolly caps on, some with the jungle hat on, the floppy, the field hat. Really nice figures, and they do a reasonable selection. The Argentinians are quite nice as well. So that's what I'm intending to do. I've been speaking to the Colin Phillips, who was one of the co-authors of the original Skirmish Sangin, and there is a second edition of version 2 coming out. I think that's just going to be called Sangin, for a shorter, more punchy title. Again, designed around Afghanistan, but easily adaptable to other periods. I've got a sort of playtest version of the rules that I've been looking at, and what they've done is basically try to tidy it up a little bit, simplify some of the procedures, and also add a couple other factors, some of which I won't go into detail, but I really liked when I read them. So that's probably what I'm going to be using. So that's what we'll be looking at when we go down to the bench, what I've been doing with the figures and how I've sorted them out. Other news, we're still here. We're just basically waiting on a date to move. I would imagine it's going to, fingers crossed, it's probably going to be within the next month or so. Other news, for people local to where I live in Whitley Bay in the northeast of England, the Border Reaver Wargaming show, which is at Gateshead International Stadium, that's on Saturday the 17th of September this year. I'll be putting a demonstration game on with Alex, and it'll be 20mm Falklands. So anyone who is able to come along, it would be great to see people and have a natter and a chinwag. Demonstration will be playing. I've been thinking about possibly doing a scenario I've been working on for the first stages at Goose Green. So it's a nighttime action, and it's one of the initial encounters. So that's what we'll be doing. So it'll give people a chance to come and have a look at the figures and the terrain. Talking of terrain, my son Alex has been knocking out some Wargames terrain. He's selling it on eBay, or if you wanted to message him, you can certainly do that. We'll certainly sort that out. What I'll do, I'll put a link in the description of the video with contact details and his eBay page. There's photos on, you can have a look. He's initially started doing some fields, which are, to be honest, are really nice, and they're quite reasonably priced. So for those that are interested, have a look at that. So that's where we are. We'll get down to the bench now and have a look at the figures. Right, so as I mentioned in the introduction, 28mm figures for the Falklands. Very low level skirmish, so we're looking basically, the maximum I'm probably going to do is about a section, so maybe it's 8 figures, maybe it's a couple more, but that'll be it. Pardon me. So for the British, these figures you can see here are they're the old MoFo miniatures, Cold War British, that I picked up off a friend, a gaming buddy that'd been through a few, passed over to a few different people, and I eventually inherited them. They're the original castings, so they're quite crisp. As I've said, from the Cold War British range, so perfectly usable and adaptable for the Falklands. The only issue I got probably about 25 figures. Lots with SLRs, a couple with Sterlings, a couple with LMGs, the 7.62 conversion of the World War II Bren. However, I didn't have any with GPMGs. So I looked at the MoFo range, which has been around for a while. They do a small range of British and Argentinians for the conflict. The British, the vast majority of them come with separate heads, so they do different head packs with helmets and woolly hats and what have you. So I bought one pack of British, which is what they call the support pack. You get 2 guys with LMGs, 2 with GPMGs. I'll show you as an example this this figure here. So this guy's got a GPMG. Obviously the heads are separate. Basic 58 pattern weapon he's wearing, so the 2 kidney pouches, bomber poncho roll, a couple of ammunition pouches. He's got ammo belt on. GPMGs, I'm assuming for the casting process, have been a little bit simplified. So when we're looking at it, the flash eliminator, which is obviously on the end of the barrel, and the GPMG, that's quite long. That isn't there, so that'll need sorting. Also, the bipod, which folds from this point here, is basically missing. And there's also the carrying handle, which doubles as the handle to remove the barrel when you do a barrel change. That is around about here. That's missing as well. Not a biggie. I'll show you what I've done to sort of sort that out. So initially I thought I'd just quickly show you these figures. So that's an example of one of the MoFo figures. As I mentioned earlier, you get strips of heads. These are the I think they're called these para-marine helmets, which is sort of the airborne style helmet. And they do various different ones. So that was the pack of British. Argentinian wise, they do, I've basically got a section, so I've got a couple of packs of Argentinian infantrymen with FALs, and then the support pack, which are guys with GPMGs, and I also got a 50 caliber pack just for scenario driven, really, for Argentine positions in the mountains. So one of the Argentinians, as you can see, although they're old, they're nice castings. Nice job on the FAL. tend to be light order equipment, which is ideal. Where some of them are wearing parkas, some of them are wearing combat jackets, helmets. Some of them have got the goggles on, some of them haven't. But they're quite nice little castings. So as I say, I've got probably about 10 of those, which will be ideal. So moving on to the figures. These, as I've said, are the old Mongrel figures, which I think now are sold by Badger Games in America. I don't think there's a UK distributor. These, as I mentioned, are some of the original castings, so they're quite nicely done. Again, standard 58 pattern webbing. So you've got the yoke, 2 kidney pouches, bum roll, poncho roll, ammunition, and they've obviously got SLRs. They have the helmet, depending on when they're designed. Looking at Cold War British infantry with SLRs, standard infantry would have the 44 pattern helmet on, which is basically World War II one, which tends to be flatter. They've scrimmed these up, so it'll take very little to convert these, maybe with just some additional scrim, into the more high sort of airborne helmet, which I'll do. Carl and Andy, who inherited the figures, I'm not sure they've done the basing, which is fine. I'll be sorting that out, but that's okay. So in the section you've got I've got these riflemen. They're nice figures, good positions. As I say, the SLRs look like SLRs. The sculptor, I'm assuming it was Soapy at the time, I'm not 100% sure, made a nice job of them, and I think either Carl or Andy's started to do the camouflage. I'll be repainting them just so they're matching with me other stuff, really. So I've got these 8 guys with SLRs. This is one I've actually started on here. If I can get a back coverage here so you can see it. That's a bit better. So I've started repainting this one, and I basically do a black base, and then I've started blocking in the colours for the DBM, and obviously started work on the helmet. They're nice figures, and they're probably ideal for what I want. So moving on to the GBMG guy, I'll show you what I've done with him. So this figure is from the MoFo Falklands range. So he has these quilted pants. The Chairman Mao pants are a thing that they did for the British Army did at the time for cold weather. They're like a nylon quilted over trouser. There are some photos of guys wearing them in the Falklands. From experience, from my days in the army, that they're great if you're in static positions, but once you start moving, you just massively overheat. So they weren't sort of ideal. Obviously, during the conflict, with guys being in the field for quite a long extended period, they just basically wore whatever they could get, basically, which is why this guy's in that. So what have I done to the figure? Right, GBMG wise, if we go to that first. So when I was on about the flash eliminator, that's that piece here. So you can see it's been extended. That's the flash eliminator lock and nut there. This is just plastic rod with a couple of coats of Mr. Surfacer on to thicken it up a little bit. Got the foresight here, gas regulator. This is the point where the bipod is attached. So this is just plastic format. I think it's square or triangular that I've added. Added that on. Green stuff for the pivot, and I've also done some green stuff for the feet of the bipod. If you turn it around, you can see it. You can see them on that side there. Already had a moulding belt on. This is the carrying handle here that you can see sticks out a little bit. That's just bent plastic rod with a green stuff handle added. I've also added, used some Procreate to add an ammunition belt, which this guy didn't have on. And you can see I've added some green stuff scrim to just get the helmet a bit more in the shape that I wanted. Now, the only thing left to do with this, obviously as part of the casting process, the sculptors decided not to try and add the sling. This guy would definitely have a sling. If my memory serves us right, I think a GBMG is about £26. They're heavy to hump around, and you need a sling. So I will be adding a sling. I considered not adding one, but obviously me, I would have just got agitated if I didn't do it. So I'll be adding a sling. Haven't quite decided how I'm going to do it yet. Possibly lead foil initially and then detailing it with green stuff. The GPMG sling had a fatter section in the middle of the sling, which obviously like a shoulder pad, which went over your shoulder, and then from either end the straps were thinner, attached to a point here, and then there was obviously a lug on the back of the bolt that it attached to. So I'm thinking of obviously putting it from the butt here, perhaps over that shoulder, down and connected to the front of the gun. Quite pleased with how it's turned out. So far. And as I say, if I don't do it, I'll just be continually looking up the figure when it's painted, thinking, oh, I should have really done that. So I'll have to consider how I'm going to do it. So anyway, that's where we are with the figures, and we'll do a roundup and go from there. Right. So that's where we are with the figures. Next stop is GPMG sling. So as normal, the links I've thought about, I've put in the description. If you've got any questions at all, drop a message. I'll do my best to answer the queries. If you've enjoyed the video, please like it. If you're not a subscriber, have a think about subscribing. You can do that from the main channel page. Alternatively, at the end of the video, in the bottom right hand corner, is my normal 28mm British Empress British Modern Infantryman on the button. Just click that, and you can subscribe. Next up, me and my better half are away at Lanzarote for a week coming up. So what I'm going to do is get a couple of maybe showcase videos done this week, and I'll get them banged on a schedule, so they'll appear normally on Mondays. Not sure what I'm going to do. I've had a request in relation to the 20mm Afghan stuff about, I mentioned the terrain. I've got quite a lot of Afghan terrain, so I think I'll maybe do something along those lines. So that's where we are. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.